Here I am with Walter Daugherity, or Dr. D as you like to be called, at the Plan Revealed, Mike Lindell's event. And what I'm doing is I'm going around, I'm meeting with people to talk about their election stories where there's election irregularities. I've done this before, and I'm doing it again with this symposium because of the fact many people connect the stolen election to the narrative of the 2020. When we get down to pinpoint it, we find smaller stories in smaller areas where things are being revealed. Walter, Dr. D, what story do you have about things that you've revealed in your area?
Well, the first election data that I got access to was from Pima County, Arizona in 2020. So I had reconnected with a high school classmate, class of 1963, who was running for office there, lost the election, and I said, hey, I'm a math and computer guy, can you get me some data? And as a candidate, he got the cast vote record from the party immediately, didn't have to go through the public records request situation. So I started analyzing the data, and it showed clear patterns that should not be there that were evidence of manipulation. And from there, it's kind of spread across the country as more and more people have collected more and more data and been able to analyze it with similar techniques.
So his information is coming from the cast vote ballots. Is that what you're saying? That where you're seeing the irregularities from?
Yes, the cast vote record is simply an electronic record of a voter's selections. So you can think of it as a computer file that could be displayed as a spreadsheet where every row would be one ballot. So the first row is the first ballot voted for these candidates, the second row, the second ballot voted for these candidates. So there's no identification of the voter, it's just this is how the first ballot voted, this is how the second ballot voted. Now the importance of the cast vote record is that it lets you look at the sequence the votes were tabulated. So recounts are great, risk limiting audits are great, but they only look at the total. They don't look at the sequence.
So this is the sequence, and why is the sequence important in this situation?
Because it lets you see whether or not there are mathematically impossible patterns there. So if you look at the total votes, let me just make something up. You've got candidates A and B. At the end of the election, the totals are that candidate A got 1,000 votes and candidate B got 2,000 votes. You say, okay, candidate B won the election. But now if you looked at the sequence of the ballots and you saw that the sequence was pretty mixed for the first half of the ballots. So it was like some A, some B, some A, some B. And then there were 500 ballots in a row for candidate A with nobody voting for candidate B. You'd say, something a little questionable there. So that's a pattern that probably shouldn't be there. And then you go dig a little deeper and you find out, for example, that there were 500 ballots printed on counterfeit paper or whatever the case may be. So looking at the sequence lets you detect patterns that you wouldn't realize from the final total. It's kind of like your bank statement. So if your bank statement said, here's your balance the end of January, here's your balance the end of February, you say, hey, wait a minute, I want to see all the checks and deposits.
Oh, yeah, to go through.
How did it go through?
I understand. So let me ask this. I'm seeing a lot of really interesting piece of these graphs that people are saying, at 10:30, all the votes jumped up, significantly for this person or that person. They'll say, well, for Biden, for instance, they'll say, okay, at this time, all of a sudden, Trump got 0 votes, but Biden got, 5,000 votes. Do any of the cast vote records line up with the graphs that some of these people are showing at those times?
Yes. So in Pima County, Arizona, there was a whistleblower who said that he was in a meeting with all the Democrat candidates in September. This is before the November 2020 election. And in this meeting, so it was either a candidate or perhaps a campaign manager. They were all informed they'd all get 35,000 extra votes. And obviously this person had never heard it before because they kept asking questions. And they said, well, won't that be obvious? Like if you see 35,000 votes at the end of the election, there'd be this huge spike. That'd be obvious. And they said, no, we'll spread it out in blocks of 1,000. And then this person had a twinge of conscience, I guess, and sent an anonymous email to the FBI, the Department of Justice, and every Arizona legislator, which is where I got a copy of it, is from an Arizona legislator. And with that information that the fraud votes would be inserted in blocks of 1,000, I could go through the cast vote record and see if there was a consecutive block of 1,000 that was way out of line with the blocks before and after, and I found them.
This is amazing. Any other tidbits of facts that you found? This is
Lots all over the country. I mean,
I'm-
the power of graphical analysis. So when you're working with big data, let's take Pima County again. You've got 500,000 votes times however many candidates there are, so 17. So that means there are roughly 8 or 9 million, you can call them numbers, yes or no, did they vote for this candidate. You could look at 9 million numbers and eventually see whether there was a pattern that was there that shouldn't be, or whether a pattern that should be there was missing. But when you put it on a graph and you're going down the graph and you see a line that is trending blip, 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 wham, then you say, okay, now I need to look at just
the cast
those
vote,
1,000 numbers.
and you can pull the cast vote record for that
For
block,
those 1,000.
for that 1,000
yeah.
to see what happens.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So do you all have this information made public for anybody to see?
Yes, it's on my Telegram channel, which is Dr. D Presents, Dr_D_Presents. Look for the Alabama Declaration. The reason I included it there is because Alabama uses the same machine that Pima County uses, and so I used the Pima County example in my Alabama Declaration.
So you've got all this on your Telegram channel.
That's right.
Amazing. Well, Dr. D, thank you very much for being on today. Thank you very much for informing people of problems that they need to look at. And I'm going to be interviewing you in a longer form later. I can see it already. You got a lot of good information.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you all. We got some more videos coming up.